In this day and age, people are always coming to blows with each other over differences in opinion, so that's why I've sworn to only spout off on my hot takes on Masked Singer. Oh, even that can get you banned from Twitter. Anyways, let's get into it, because there's a lot of divisive stuff to unpack here, and for once, I'm not actually ranking these from least unpopular to most unpopular. I'm just going in chronological order by season, so let's begin with Season 1. Of course, Hippo had to be pretty bad to go first, but after rewatches of his one and only performance, it's kind of surprising he went first. I mean, his group was really tough, with masks like Peacock, Monster, Lion, and Alien, all of which made it very far in the competition. To me, at least, I think Deer should have gone out here instead of Hippo, and then if his second performance was good enough, I could see him even outlasting Unicorn. Speaking of Unicorn, Unicorn wasn't as good as the panel thought she was, in my opinion. I never liked Unicorn, and still I got very angry that Unicorn won that initial face-off against Monster in the very first episode, which is funny because Monster ended up winning the season. I think she was a little too quiet, like her voice, I think she would have made it further if she was maybe able to, project more, but she just seemed very quiet, and sometimes it was almost hard to hear her voice over the music. I did think it made sense where she ended up going home just a couple episodes away from the Super 6. I feel like that was a suitable place for her to go. Now, this one might make some people upset. B was never robbed. It pains me to still see fans saying that B was robbed. I mean, I know she made it to the finale, which has to count for something, and she was really good, but it was probably the most distant, well, I don't know if the most distant final three, but I just don't think at that time that she stacked up to either Peacock or Monster, in my opinion. Was she still good? Of course. I'm not trying to deny that. I just don't think she was ever in any position to win the Golden Mask. And that is all my unpopular opinions for Season 1. We're already moving on to Season 2, which I believe Season 2 I have quite a few. Starting with Penguin should have gone instead of Eagle at the SmackDown. This is another one that a lot of people... this is another thing that a lot of people I think would disagree with me on. But, we see the face-off losers, Eagle and Penguin, in Episode 3, duking it out at the SmackDown, and in both their first performances and their SmackDown performances, I think it is clear to see who's the better singer, and it's not Penguin. More and more, I just feel like Penguin was just atrocious, and maybe Eagle was no opera singer, but he had a pretty solid first performance, especially for a celebrity who is not, known to be a singer, and a SmackDown performance that I at least think should have brought they should have at least beat Penguin, in there. What's worse is she is eliminated the very next time her group performs, so, what was the use of unmasking Eagle then anyways? They might as well just flip-flop the order, because that's probably what should have happened. Now, this is one that I think a lot of people will get on my side for, even though it's not really talked about. But sometimes I think that we forget just how good Black Widow was. It is just that the competition this season was so hard. It's probably one of the best seasons, competition-wise. They got some really good, singers on Season 2. And once each group was down to 3, they consolidated into 2 groups of 6, right away. So really the only bad performer in her group was Skeleton. Flamingo, Butterfly, and Thingamajig were not going anywhere, and once Skeleton was unmasked, the only real way she could stay alive is if she outsung Leopard, but after that, I can't see her making it really any further anyways, but she was still excellent. It is important to note that this opinion isn't necessarily that she should have beat those people, it's just that she was a victim of circumstance and probably would have done much better in another group. Alright, now y'all have to have your pitchforks and torches out by now. Let's be real here. Thingamajig ain't good enough to get himself as far as he actually got, but that's pretty much it. He wasn't a professional singer, and at the Final 5, most of the remaining masks were. Now that being said, he and Leopard were both unmasked at the Final 5, and because he was unmasked first, I think that means he came in 5th, which I don't agree with necessarily. I think he still was a bit better than Leopard, but the thing is that Final 3 that year was, probably the best Final 3 that, the show has ever seen in terms of, how close it would have been. And I just think that a lot of people are like, oh, Thingamajig should have won. But, no, I really don't think so. No disrespect to Fox. He was one of the best winners of this show, in my opinion. But personally, I just liked Rottweiler's performances more. I think Chris Daughtry's voice is a little more flexible when it comes to what kinds of songs he could sing, because he had a great variety of performances, when I feel like Fox kind of stayed in the same lane for the most part, which isn't a bad thing. He still killed it, too. It's just, because Rottweiler has my favorite Masked Singer performance, on Masked Singer ever. So even with that alone, that's sort of how I feel about him coming in second. Moving on to Season 3, and I know back when this season was on, I was there to criticize and make fun of White Tiger for how terrible he was of a singer, and why he unfairly beat out a lot of better performers. Well, as frustrating as that was, it made perfect sense. The thing is of White Tiger's first 3 performances, all of them were party hits that riled up the crowd, and even though Rob Gronkowski is obviously not a trained singer, his background in football made him a very good dancer, and his onstage charisma and bright energy, some could even say his good vibrations, were enough to keep him safe week to week. And that's what happened with quite a lot of other masks who made it further than expected just because they had the crowd pumped up. Similarly, Llama was another mask that went out early, but his group was pretty difficult, and Llama may have been on the worst end of that group, but Turtle and Kangaroo, I remember genuinely thinking that Llama was good. He had this quasi-crooner sound that I liked, and I will admit that it was one of my weaker, arguments, that it's like, well, he was okay, you know, but like, he just, you know, he wasn't going to win or anything, right? Let alone make it very far at all. I just think that he gets a little less love than he actually does, that's it. Speaking of crooners, and this is really an unpopular opinion on its own, but Taco is the greatest crooner type singer I think we've ever had on the show. And personally, I was surprised that Tom Bergeron could belt it like that. I was shocked that he didn't make it to the Super 9, because I genuinely thought he was the frontrunner from Group B. So why do I think this? Well, let's look at the final 4 of Group B. Kitty, Frog, Banana, and Taco. Kitty was solid. She wasn't going anywhere. And Frog turned out to be a massive hit, so it's really down to Banana and Taco. How did Banana stay? Seriously, like, he only lasted a few more rounds after that anyways, and I think Taco stands a better chance against those who outlasted Banana than Banana did himself. Banana just, he wasn't that great, really, and I like, he was good, but I think Taco had him beat in both vocals and audience influence. Well, at least in vocals. Audience influence, I think Banana might have had a slight edge. But yeah, now how long after that do I think Taco lasts? Well, I don't think he would make it to the final 6, but I still think he was at least robbed of his spot at the final 9. Like all rappers on Masked Singer, I think it takes a performance or two for them to really get in the zone, get them really on top, and I think what kind of backs up this argument is we still do see rappers that don't do well. Like just this season with Dalmatian, he was, I'm pretty sure, like, well, not second to go, but he was the first person from his group to go. And so, like, with rappers, it is a thing where you kind of have to maybe fight a little extra harder to get the crowd, like, on your side and get, like, you know, people voting on your side. And I think this was demonstrated perfectly with Frog. I remember the first time I saw him, I was like, oh no, this guy's going to go out, like, right away. And then I was like, every week, I was like, oh, I'm so surprised that he's here. And then he's he just magically like had the influence and did really well that season. I also think White Tiger's terrible rapping skills also painted Frog in a bad light for me at first, as I was like thinking, great, another rapper, he's probably also gonna suck. And with the other strong vocals in Group B, I sensed that Frog was on the hot seat more than once. Yeah, once the groups merge, he goes full speed ahead from there and is almost never in question of going home until the finale. At this point, I feel like all the vocalists should have some sort of trump card over Frog, and it was the final 6 where it started to get ridiculous. I think the ideal alternate ending at the final 6 is that Astronaut stays and either Frog or Rhino go instead. I absolutely thought the Astronaut was going to be in the final 3. Boy, was I wrong, but part of me thinks I should have been right. All right, here we go, Season 4, and I'm not sure how many, I think Season 4 and 5 have, like, pretty equal. I think Season 5 might have more unpopular opinions. I don't know. But Season 4, and here's a doozy. I actually think most people will get behind this opinion. I really do think Dragon was a good rapper. And sure, maybe he still deserved to go out when he did, but that doesn't take away from the fact that he was a good rapper. I think most people just didn't like his voice, but his rapping abilities themselves were excellent. And I think his voice just made the audience feel like his performance was rushed and maybe a little sloppy, but honestly, even I like his voice. I thought his voice is a really cool and like a unique sound from the rappers. I think I still think he should have gone out when he did, unfortunately, but that was because that Group A of Season 4 is a really tough group. Now, I may be playing with fire when saying that Bob Saget sings better than a classic age crooner, but the fact of the matter is, Squiggly Monster just impressed me more with his voice than Broccoli did. I think I like both of Squiggly Monster's performances, and I never really cared for any of Broccoli's. I think that what it comes down to is that Squiggly had more confidence in his voice, and I think that carried over into the quality of the performance. So in Group A, it was a three-way battle for 2 spots in the Super 6, and there was just no way that Sun was not going to be there. So it was really a foot race between Popcorn and Snow Owls. I did predict that Popcorn would make it, but that was based mostly on audience approval. In actuality, I wholeheartedly believe that Snow Owls had the better voice, and I was overall more impressed with their performance. That being said, they'd really only make it as far as Popcorn did, as the competition in Super 6 was fierce. I can't stand it when people say, oh my gosh, I thought Seahorse was going to win, or like, Seahorse was totally robbed. If Seahorse was robbed at all, it was because she went out in a triple unmasking, where she was unmasked with the likes of Popcorn and Jellyfish. That's what was unfair, because she went out when they basically cut the cast in half. Seahorse, she never stood a chance to win at all, in my opinion. There was just too many, there were just bigger fish, pun intended. I mean, up against Serpent and Croc in Group B, I didn't think she'd make it. I did not think that she'd make it. Serpent, I thought Serpent was gonna win. Like, straight out, I thought he was gonna win. And I think he didn't because it was Dr. Elvis, who is a doctor and was, this was in the middle of COVID, so like they needed him to help with patients and stuff. So I think that's why they eliminated him then. But like, no. Serpent, like, if that wasn't the case, Jellyfish would have gone out in like, I don't know, 7th or before the Super 6. But then throwing Sun and Mushroom into the mix at Super 6, no, her loss was inevitable. Finally, we land at the second to most recent season. I started writing the script a long time ago before season 6 started, and so that's why I'll just say right now, I don't have any unpopular opinions for season 6, because it's not finished yet. But the most recent season at the time I was writing this, season 5, here we go. Let's take the 2 worst masks in episode 1, Raccoon and Snail. How do we judge who should stay and who should go? Snail sang a feel-good song in a campy yet not great voice, but can you blame him? It was literally a puppet. And Raccoon didn't sing. I don't know what he did. He basically screeched the entire song. Well, sure, the song he picked sort of allowed for that, but still. The next time Group A went up to bat, with Snail now gone, he took a sledgehammer to Ring of Fire, and that was completely unnecessary. I was shocked that Raccoon wasn't going here, like, at the first episode, and it was only so obvious that Raccoon was going the next chance he had. Well, actually, even that was a mystery, because next time Group A performed was when Orca made his first appearance, so we had no idea if he could be quite possibly worse than Raccoon. But, like, even if you, like, I don't even know how unpopular this opinion is, honestly, because if you look up, like, there are tons of videos where it's, like, every Masked Singer contestant ranked, and I'm pretty sure, like, 9 times out of 10, Raccoon comes up further below than Snail, so I don't even know if this should even qualify as an unpopular opinion. Now, I was gonna say that it seems like the fandom is divided over Bulldog, but I don't even think that's true. I think the fandom hates Bulldog, but I don't. Yeah, like, if they are divided, they're definitely more leaning towards that he was bad. But I'm here to settle it and say that he was mediocre. The truth is that Bulldog was intended to be a gimmick, as it was Nick Cannon all along. So did you expect him to be the next Rottweiler? I couldn't wrap my head around it if his voice was actually good or not, but I think that's just it. It wasn't gonna take him anywhere, and it was solid enough to make me think that he might be able to stay. And honestly, like, I don't think that it's Nick Cannon's actual singing voice. I just don't think that if you were to sing, that's what it would sound like. And he also picked a song that I think is not super characteristic of Nick Cannon. So I think it was just a gimmick. So I don't think we can even really judge Bulldog's performance, let alone say it was bad. Chameleon was one of the best rappers this show has seen, no doubt. But I think he had the opportunity to outshine even Frog. His first performance showed that he had a pretty good singing voice, and it was definitely like a more impressive first performance than Frog by tenfold. And that combined with his great rapping skills, it would be a knockout. And maybe that's why we saw him make it to the end like Frog did. But then after that, he went under the radar again, sort of, with a few good performances and a few only okay performances. And then he sticks his head back up again with Gangsta's Paradise at the finale, which scores an absolute home run. One that even I thought, you know what, maybe he could win. But it was too late, because by then Piglet and Black Swan had already run circles around him competition-wise. You know, it is a shame. I don't think he was better than Frog, but I think he could have been. I think a lot of people refer to RoboPine as the front runner last season, hence why there was an outrage when he went home at the Spicy 6. Well, to say that RoboPine was the front runner is sort of silly. Was he a front runner? Of course, but the fact of the matter is that there were several masks this season that were just as likely to take the golden mask as he was. We couldn't say that Robopine was the front runner when there are people around like Black Swan, Russian Dolls, and Piglet. I feel like this season got its fair share of criticism. I assume a lot of other people were skeptical of the wildcard twist, and the 14 count of masks was underwhelming compared to the counts of the past 3 seasons. That being said, the structure of the season ensured that it didn't feel as short, and I really warmed up to the wildcard twist. It added a new component to the show, and while I don't necessarily think it should come back, which, see, you can already tell how dated this script was, it definitely made this season very special. Probably the main reason why I think this was the best season yet was because of how close it got. People may complain over Blindside after Blindside going into the finale. I was one of those people too, but that was because by the time only 6 acts, not 6 masks because Russian Dolls were still in the competition as a multiple person mask, by the time only 6 were still standing, things seemed pretty even keel for the most part. There was no way to tell what mask was at the front of the pack, and even though Chameleon were here sort of seemed out of place, he was already giving off major Frog vibes at this point, so I think people just shrugged it off. This season was unexpected with its twists and turns all season, and I think that's what makes it the best season yet. It had a ton of stuff cool, like a ton of cool things. Is it my personal favorite season? I don't even know if I have a favorite season. But it's definitely, I think, the best season that we've had so far. But yeah, so those are my unpopular opinions. Comment below what you think, if you agree with any of my opinions, or if you have any other, if you yourself have any unpopular opinions or Masked Singer hot takes. I feel like I use that term hot take a lot whenever I'm talking about like Survivor or Masked Singer or Big Brother or whatever. So I figured, why not I make just a video where I get all these Masked Singer hot takes out of the way. Just have, it's just a fun thing to talk about. But anyways, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you later.